Hey there, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. I want to let you know about a great new resource for state broadband offices and internet service providers for workforce development, which is going to be a challenge as we see more and more federal dollars going towards broadband deployment. Be right back. Hey there, thanks for joining me. Rick Usey here with Zcorum with Broadband Deployment News. The Fiber Broadband Association has come out with a great resource for workforce development. In addition to what they're doing, another great initiative that they're doing as far as training, helping to train folks or get folks trained up for broadband work, for things like splicing fiber and all the kinds of things that we're going to need as we get more dollars coming out, especially with the BEAD program sitting out there. There's going to be a significant need for trained fiber installers and folks working in all kinds of ways with fiber, but it's specifically, I think, in the initial stages of deploying broadband, which would be getting the fiber installed, splicing, those kinds of things. There's a broadband workforce development guidebook, and I've linked to this in the description of this video, so you're welcome to download that and check it out for yourself. I was going to go ahead and walk through just a few things and just show you what's in here. So I've got that right here. Get over to that link or to that tab. So here we are. So this is the Broadband Workforce Development Guidebook. Again, this is from Fiber Broadband in conjunction with Cartesian, which is a group that they've worked on a couple of other projects with. You see here, workforce for implementing BEAD and other deployment programs. So again, this is a challenge that we've known is going to come about because we've got a historic amount of money that's all going to be coming out at once for broadband deployment. So that means that in all of the states, there's going to be various needs for people that are just going to be getting funds and then all trying to do the same thing at the same time, which is deploying broadband in their various areas. So it's going to be a challenge, but FBA is doing what they can to try to look ahead and plan for that. So you see here, I'm just going to read a few spots. So the Fiber Broadband Association has been working closely with the NTIA, the Department of Commerce, the administration, and the Department of Labor to help ensure that our nation can train the workforce needed to get fiber to every American home and business. And obviously they're the Fiber Broadband Association, so it's in their best interest to promote fiber, but it's also in the best interest of communities if they can have fiber being what is deployed, because that is the most future-proof solution that we have right now. In 2021, the Fiber Broadband Association began the development of a world-class training program for fiber optic technicians, and as a national registered apprenticeship with the U.S. Department of Labor. This intensive program called OpTIC Path Fiber Optic Technician training includes up to 144 hours of classroom and hands-on skills instruction, followed by 2,000 hours of apprenticeship, and this ensures that any student is fully qualified to immediately work in the field as a fiber optic technician. So this is great. The fact that they're trying to standardize on training and get this out there in every state that there is, everywhere that they can, to ensure that we have the workforce that we need. The first cohort of students was launched in May 2022, and this training is now being rolled out to all 56 states and territories across the nation. So not just the states, but our territories as well, that are all going to be receiving some amount of funding from BEAD to be able to improve broadband in their areas. Workforce development is an eligible expense for funding from the NTI BEAD program. So that's something to realize, that you're going to have to get folks trained up. Now, one of the things that this does is it will make your training, and I should say this will help you if you are let's say a state office trying to figure out how are we going to get all the people that we need in our state. Well, there's a lot of good information in here. If you're an internet service provider, there's good information on what you need to be thinking about if you're going to be doing your own training, but also this OpTIC Path fiber training that the FBA does. If that can be leveraged early on, then you're going to have a pool of people that are really experienced from the standpoint of getting training. And then any training that you do can go a lot further. So rather than having to train somebody from the ground up, you're going to be able to hopefully have a pool of some people that can come in that have already seen some of this. They've had classroom training, they've been out in the field and done real world hands-on experience kind of training, so that when you bring somebody in to train them, you can focus in on getting them trained on your policies and procedures and anything that you need to do, in addition to making sure that they get additional practice on the stuff that they've already learned. So This really can make a difference. Both this guidebook to help kind of guide states on what they need to do to get training, get a good workforce in their state, as well as internet service providers and their training programs. So workforce development is an eligible expense, as I mentioned here. So that's important to know that you can, any training that you need to do in addition to this, or any training, any workforce development that the state needs to do, the State Broadband Office really can be funded through BEAD. So as the states are putting their 5-year plans together, they can be looking at this guidebook as well as what the FBA is doing and trying to figure out how much of the funds that they're going to use can go toward these training programs that they may need to do in their state. The Fiber Broadband Association projects that 205,000 fiber optic technicians will be required across the nation over the next 5 years. So that's a large number of people. And as you'll see here in a minute, the number of people that are working in telecom in these particular kinds of areas has been going down for various reasons. So that's bad in that we've got actually a contraction of the number of people that are available, but hopefully through programs like this and the focus that we're going to need here, that we're going to be able to expand that quite a bit. You can see it's fairly detailed guide here. Here's the table of contents. Again, I'm just going to walk through just a couple of things here. So the scale of the BEAD program will create a nationwide demand for skilled labor beyond what the current workforce can support, as we just mentioned here. To succeed, each state will need a comprehensive workforce development strategy that invests in skills and training. If unaddressed, the U.S. faces a looming labor problem. More miles of fiber promised than the current workforce has the capacity to deliver. And that's an important note because we're talking about, do we have enough money to be able to deploy fiber everywhere? And even if we can't deploy it everywhere, there's going to be some really high cost areas that I think everybody agrees maybe fiber's not going to be right. It's just going to be too expensive to connect just 1 or 2 homes that are really far away or really significantly difficult terrain. For maybe those areas, they need to be extremely high cost, and another technology like wireless or maybe even satellite might have to be used somewhere like that, at least in this shorter term, I should say. So in a situation like that, we're trying to get as much fiber as we can, but let's say we can get fiber to the maximum number of people, we still have to have enough people to be able to deploy that. And that's the challenge that we're talking about right here, because you can have, even if we had enough money to cover every single home in fiber, then you've got to get that installed, which means you're going to have to get all the people out there that know how to do that. And that the fewer people that are available, obviously, the longer that's going to take. So we want to shorten that as much as possible. Scroll through here, you see various things. I'll let you look through this. This is kind of your planning process that they go through here. And the scale of the challenge talks about how BEAD will create thousands of new jobs. That's one of the things that it's meant to do. It's the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, but it is under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So part of the purpose of that act was to, in addition to improving infrastructure, and a big portion of that is broadband, $65 billion, then that's important. But the portion of that, the jobs portion of that, is important as well for the economy, getting jobs, let's say shovel-ready jobs. And we might have plenty of shovel-ready jobs, but if we don't have enough people who know how to use a shovel, or in this case, the fiber technicians who know how to splice fiber, know how to do the trenching that's needed, it might be a shovel, but trenching and those kinds of things, or aerial kinds of deployments, we need people to be able to do that. The telecom workforce is shrinking and lacks diversity. So you can see here over time, as they show the people that we had in January of 2013, and this is trending down, as you can see here. This is all employees in thousands. So you can see that number trending down from 2013 to 2023. So just in the last 10 years, you can see that going down, which is interesting considering the last couple of years. Now, we did have a bump up here recently as I look at that, but then back down again. But you'd think with the pandemic, there would have been opportunity. And that's something to remember here, that they talk about in this document, is that there's a great opportunity for people for high-paying jobs. There's going to be a lot of money out there to get broadband deployed. And in general, you've got supply and demand. So if you've got a high demand for people to be deploying broadband, then you're going to be able to get greater pay if you get into this business, so to speak, or if you are somebody that can get trained to do these kinds of things. So there'll be high demand, and there should be good opportunities for folks to get high-paying jobs through this. It mentions the fact that fiber workers are predominantly white, 59.6%, and male, almost 90%, and skew older than the median age worker in the U.S. at 44 years old. So tend to be older as well. Now, diversity is important, but just to get political here for a minute, I don't think it's right to do diversity for the sake of diversity. We need to be doing diversity for the sake of equality in employment. In other words, the goal should be that anybody who wants to get one of these jobs, whether whatever their gender is, whatever their race is, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they're qualified or can get trained and be qualified, then they should be able to get the job, and they should be able to get comparable pay for the same job. Of course, taking into factor, I think you need to take factors like experience in. So if you've got somebody who's more experienced, they've had 10 years in the job as opposed to somebody who's just coming in, there's a reason to pay them more. Or later based on merit, as people succeed and do good at their job, that's going to influence pay. But generally, somebody coming in, same level, same job, make sure that everybody can get the same pay. Doesn't matter what their race is, what their sex is. Everybody should have equal opportunity. But what we don't want is to have quotas. Quotas are bad because when you set up quotas, then it doesn't make sense. There's no reason to have quotas. And one reason there's no reason to have quotas is because people have different desires. And I don't care how much emphasis you put on diversity, you're still probably going to have more men than women doing some of these jobs, like, working out in the field with fiber and construction and those kinds of things. You're just going to have more men. That's just the way it is. And that's, that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be, because one thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we're out recruiting and trying to find people from as many, who are as diverse as possible, because sometimes some of that is because we aren't seeking. So we need to be seeking people from all different walks of life. I think that's a good thing. But we should not be having a quota that says we need to have a certain number of a certain type of people. That doesn't make sense. Because again, no matter how much you try to do that, then suddenly you're going to be skewing it in a way where you're not getting those people. You're going to be getting people maybe where it's not their desire. You're going to try really hard. And there's just a certain number of people that are going to want to do this job and a certain number that aren't. And it's probably going to fall more to men that are going to want to do a lot of these things. And it depends on what kind. If it's more manual, kind of working out in the field, climbing poles and pulling fiber, those kinds of things. I'm not saying that there's women that won't want to do that. I'm just saying that there's going to be a higher percentage of men that are going to do those kinds of jobs. So let's not have diversity for the sake of diversity. Let's have diversity for improving the number of people that can do these things, because that's another thing. We're going to need a lot of people. So we want as many who want to do it to be able to get them trained to do it. And we want to make sure that everybody who wants to do it knows that there's an opportunity there to do it. Those are the things that we want to be seeking out to do. Mentions here retirement and broader retention issues. Retirement, certainly. So you've got a lot of people who've been in the telco business for a long time, and they're retiring, and not a lot of people who've come in to take their place. So we've got that. Retirement and broader retention issues require employers to regularly seek new employees to backfill vacant posts, while low awareness of job opportunities and lack of available skilled workers makes it difficult to recruit people in the first place. So again, you got to make sure that the people who would find these jobs attractive know about them. Again, it doesn't matter what their gender or what their race is. Let's make sure everybody knows that these are available and that they could be good paying jobs. A common refrain across the industry is that not enough people know about entry-level telecommunications jobs and the associated high starting wages, earning potential, prospect of upward advancement, and/or career opportunities. So again, this is a really good opportunity that's coming up soon. It's available now. I'm sure there's people that are looking for good qualified people now, and it's going to just get worse as we have more money flowing in and more projects getting started. You see here different activities and roles in fiber deployment and wireless networks. They do mention wireless in here because wireless is the technology probably that's going to be used most often in these extremely high-cost areas where fiber just isn't a fit right now. So you see they do mention that. So there's network planning. So there's things that are more engineering, planning kinds of things that may require a little higher level of education than, say, splicing fiber, those kinds of things. So there's different opportunities here for folks that can get trained up in different ways. So network planning. Then you got surveying, land surveyor, pole supervisor, outside plant engineer, those kinds of things, permitting, procurement, network construction. So here you've got, again, those folks that are going to be out doing the hard work of building the network, different kinds of roles there. different, everything from, climbing towers to quality inspection. So it's various kinds of things that you'd be doing outside and in those network construction projects. Tower construction, obviously wireless. Tower climbers, there's a limited number of people that want to climb a tower. And I don't think that's a male or female thing. That's just, probably a fear of heights thing there. So I know I would not want to be climbing towers, at least as I am now. I know there's probably people that start doing it that get really comfortable. Just like if you've ever seen one of the videos of the people doing building the skyscrapers, and they're like, 100 stories up, or they're 100 stories, I don't know, but they're walking across these beams and, not even worrying about it. So that would not be for me, but there's people that get used to that. Fiber splicing, important part of things. Optical network installation and commission, that'd be a fiber technician. Wireless network installation and commission, that would be, again, your Wi-Fi or fixed wireless kind of service. Customer installation, so that's going to be kind of after the deployment. So once the network is built, you still need technicians. You're going to need technicians to go out and do the last 100 feet kind of connections, not the last mile, but basically, let's say the fiber is going to the curb and then somebody needs to go install it. They need to make sure that the CP is working right, those kinds of things. Customer support representative, so you got your tech support agents, and we can help with that. We do outsourced technical support for all kinds of broadband services, fixed wireless, fiber, cable modem. So if you need help with that, make sure that you look us up. Field maintenance, again, you need maintenance technicians. This again would be after the network's built. So you've got people installing the customer, you've got end user support answering the phones and taking calls from customers. It could be something as simple as, how do I set up my email, to my modem's not working, or my connection's not working. And then you need somebody, field maintenance, to go out and make sure that everything's working properly on the network at various times. This is after it's built, maybe going out and fixing things that are broken after the fact. Fiber and wireless job roles. Fiber broadband and wireless network deployment requires a highly skilled multidisciplinary workforce. So at high level, network roles can be grouped into pre-construction, construction, and post-construction phases, as shown in the diagram on the previous page. So that's kind of what it's talking about here. You've got pre-construction, construction, and post-construction. So again, these last two things we were talking about, post-construction. So those three different stages. Within each phase are a series of activities such as planning and surveying, which is kind of what we talked about here. To run to schedule and budget, all relevant skills must be available at the right time throughout. So that's true. You're going to need the people, obviously, in the three different stages and in those different stages. So you don't need to be worrying too much about your call center folks and your field technicians, I should say your install technicians. On the early going, you're going to be looking for the people that are going to deploy the network, construct it, engineer it, those kinds of things. But you need to keep that in mind down the road. What else do we have here? As outlined above, a significant part of fiber broadband and wireless deployment involves construction-based activities such as digging trenches to lay fiber or controlling heavy-duty equipment. It's a large pool of workers with the skills and experience to perform these jobs, that as they're required in several adjacent industries such as construction or utilities. Therefore, these types of roles may be easier to fill as they can leverage existing skill sets in similar industries. So the point there is, if people already have, there are already construction companies that can do this, that can do fiber. Now they're going to need a lot of people to do this. So there's still going to be need for those, but the really specialized things that they talk about here, it says conversely, certain job roles are unique to fiber and wireless deployment, such as fiber splicing, and these require specific technical knowledge and skills. So you don't need to splice fiber to trench or lay conduit, those kinds of things. A construction company can do that, but you need somebody then to come in and be able to do the fiber work. Transitioning workers from adjacent industries into these roles is more difficult, and employees will require new training to perform their jobs safely and to a high standard. Networks are built by service providers, prime contractors, and subcontractors. So that's who's building these networks now. It says contracting and subcontracting is widespread across the country. Prime contractors tend to be used by larger ISPs. So you've got a prime contractor who then has subcontractors that they put together to be able to bring together a full service package from kind of start to finish on everything you'd need. Both ISPs and prime contractors will supplement their workforce with subcontractors. For example, a mid-sized ISP looking to expand their footprint within a state county may only require an uplift in network construction labor for up to 12 months, which does not commercially justify hiring and training full-time employees. Our research indicates ISPs tend to contract out the pre-construction and construction phases, utilizing their own labor, the immediate post-construction and maintenance work. So that makes sense. So if you're a operator, you're going to edge out in a territory, you don't necessarily want to maintain a workforce all the time that can do that, because you're only adding to your network or deploying broadband at certain times. You've got certain projects that you're going to do. So you may get some money through BEAD, then you're going to have this project, but when that's over, you're going to be switching to the post-deployment phase, and then it's an ongoing concern that you're going to keep going. You're going to keep that business going. So you're going to have more of the people that are going to do that ongoing work that you're going to need after construction, and not so much hiring people that are going to be digging trenches and those kinds of things. Other than, what you might have to do to connect up a customer, you're not really going to need that. So that's an important point there. Shared resources increase competition for labor. So competition for labor is higher within states that have concurrent infrastructure projects and between states where employers are reliant on contract labor, which tends to be mobile. Large contracting firms can take workers and move them between states following shifting demand. ISPs cannot risk relying on this labor source being readily available on short notice if demand rises quickly. So these large contractors, again, these are big projects. You've got people that, again, this is well suited to younger people maybe that are not married or that have a lot of flexibility, so they can pick up and go where the business is and get paid well to do that. So they may work for 12 months in one area, and then they'll be assigned to another area, and they'll live and work there for a while. And what they're saying is it's going to be hard for ISPs to kind of rely on this because there's going to be a lot of competition. So you may have a number of competing forces in your state, in various areas in your state, as well as in other states. And you need to be able to get the resources, the contractors, or whatever that you need in order to be able to deploy your own fiber. Service providers that aren't seeking BEAD dollars will still be impacted due to shared potential labor sources to pull from. So that's an important point for anybody who's saying, well, we're not really going to participate in BEAD, so we should be fine. But you're still going to be competing. You're going to have suddenly a lot of people that you may have been relying on the past as contractors to do certain things may not be there later because they're going to be working on BEAD projects somewhere else, maybe in your area or somewhere else in a different part of the country. So you got to be aware of that. It can take 3 to 6 months for a new fiber technician to become productive. So you've got to do training. Mentions here this is a category of current practices in hiring and onboarding. So 3 to 6 months to get somebody productive. The ideal applicants will have previous industry experience, a relevant 2-year associate degree, or may have completed a certified training program and or registered apprenticeship. So you'd want people that are, again, you want to start preferably with somebody who's got some amount of experience or training. And that's why this Fiber Broadband Association training program is so great, because you get people that have been through this training that you can, again, then get up to speed quicker. So I think you could really cut that 3 to 6 months down if it's just a matter of, again, training them on your internal policies and just making sure that they know everything that they're going to need to know, or they've already been trained on that previously. So that can really shorten that. Lack of standardized training reduces the availability of skilled workers. Industry has instead largely relied on in-house onboarding, at times minimal, and unstructured on-the-job training. And I know how that is because I've worked for companies where it's like that. You go in and it's basically on-the-job training because everybody's very busy. So it's like you maybe shadow somebody for a while, and you don't necessarily have a good structured program. For example, for here, we try to make sure that we've got a structured program for our tech support reps that are going to be support broadband customers around the country for various internet service providers. So we have a structured training program that they go through. They have in-class training that they go through, and then they do work hand in hand with a representative that go through various things, start taking calls, and then they have repeat training and additional training after that. So you need a structured program like that to make sure that people get trained up properly and that you maintain the quality of the kind of things that you're doing. Because if you don't, then steps get forgotten, and then suddenly your quality goes downhill and you can't figure out why. And it's because the first people were trained well, and then you bring in a new batch and they you forget some things, and a new batch comes in and more gets forgotten, and then suddenly you're not training the way you used to. So that's important. This is on top of the extra time required to seek out and recruit viable new hires. So again, this is a reason why it's great if somebody can be trained first, because you got to spend your time finding good people. But if you got to find people that you think can do the job and then train them, that makes it even more difficult. Proven solution to building the fiber workforce. I think I'm just going to scroll through. These are just some of the topics now. So this is introducing OpTIC Path. This is the program that the Fiber Broadband Association has put together. What is Fiber OpTIC Path program? It's up to 140 hours of mix of theory and hands-on learning, where students will build and develop the skills required for entry-level employment. So it's entry-level, but with 144 hours of both the classroom and, again, hands-on kinds of stuff, people will be ready to get real-world experience very, very quickly. So it is entry-level, but with that kind of experience, people can get productive on the job and then can work their way up. The program provides individuals with the skills and knowledge needed to plan, design, install, and maintain fiber optic networks. That's what we need. The course covers topics such as fiber optic cabling, splicing, testing, and troubleshooting. By the completion, graduates will be able to test or install, test, and troubleshoot components to completed systems, including at subscribers' fiber to the home locations. So it's not just the construction or I guess post-construction kinds of stuff of fiber in the outside plant. It's also dealing at the subscriber home, dealing with the installation there. Successful graduates of the program receive the Fiber Broadband Association OpTIC Path 3-year certification, plus a complimentary annual FBA membership, access to additional FBA content, and networking opportunities with industry experts. So that's great. They get a membership to FBA, so they can then get in and look at additional stuff that they've got. And you can see here some of the things that they do. It's available, again, currently offered or being considered across 32 states, and I think they want to make that available everywhere. 40-60 mix of knowledge and skills training. Classroom can be offered in person or virtually, which is nice, but you do need to be on site for the skills-based training. You got to be able to actually splice stuff and do that. Let's see, taught in various facilities in partnership with a local service provider. I don't know if they mean the schools as being the local service provider, if they mean that there's a local internet service provider there that helps with this program. So that was not clear for me. But they work with community colleges, trade and technical schools, and community centers. So it may be that there's a local service provider that also helps sponsor this in a way where they are providing some of this hands-on stuff and the materials to be able to learn those things. Program training hours will apply toward related technical instruction requirements for fiber optic and broadband related apprenticeships, designed to lead graduates to a registered apprenticeship. $200 per student license. That's very reasonable. So this is a great program for anybody. Again, there's lots of opportunity here for folks, and this would be, I would certainly jump right on this if I were in an entry-level mode wanting to get into what's going to be a very, very hot time in broadband. You got here some benefits to participants, benefits to employers, obviously lots of those. Here's an overview of the curriculum module, so you can see the various things that they go through, which is pretty comprehensive as they walk through this. Workforce development for BEAD. Again, this is very important for BEAD and what's happening there. States are likely to have faced a labor shortage similar to that, to have faced a labor shortage similar to that as to what they're going to face with BEAD. Sources of funding. So it mentions here that in addition to BEAD, so you can get funding through BEAD, there's other places where you can get funding. Knowing where to look for funds and having the resources to apply for grants is key, and they've got lists of those here. You've got the BEAD program. It talks about what you can do with that as far as workforce development. And then there's these other things. You got ARPA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, some other things here. Perkins V Program Title I, federal grants, private investment, nonprofit program sponsorship. So good info there. Then building a workforce development strategy. There's a lot of good information here. Again, this is great for the states, but I think also for internet service providers to be looking through this and seeing how they can leverage some of this information, how they can work with the OpTIC Path programs, whatever they can do to help, because they're the ones that are going to be feeling the pinch when they have to get this stuff deployed. The states obviously will, because they want to make sure they can get that money allocated and that it goes to work as quickly as possible. But then the service providers, the internet service providers in the area, whoever that happens to be, it could be a municipality, electric membership co-op, private ISP like a phone company or cable company, any of these companies are going to be feeling the pinch on workforce. So they've got workforce development goals, what to do there. And then they talk about different states. So, obviously the starting point for strategy development is to be clear on the goals. That's the case for any kind of strategy. Then they talk about what some states are doing. They talk about creating a dedicated team, conducting a workforce gap analysis. Where are the gaps? You need to look at that. Surveying state resources. What kind of resources does the state already have that you can make use of? So lots of great information in here. Defining the workforce development strategy. Establishing and scaling fiber broadband training. So it talks a lot about training in here, and how the fiber, like right here, for example, fiber training options, and it talks about how the FBA OpTIC Path can help with these things in these various areas. FBA OpTIC Path compatible. You got your format, your delivery method. State Broadband Office info here. So coordinating training for the states. That's probably enough. I've walked through enough of this, I think. So you can feel free to look through this on your own. But again, I can't stress enough how this particular program or this particular document plus this FBA program looks like it's really needed. I know it's something that we need, and it's something that as state broadband offices and service providers start to wrap their arms around this, I think it could be really helpful. So I want to make sure you're aware of it. And again, it's linked down in the description. If you want to go to that FBA page and download that, you can get it right there and check that out on your own. So hope this was helpful. If so, if you'd give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, ring the bell to be notified when I'm live. And don't forget to check us out. As I mentioned, if you're an internet service provider or a state broadband office and wondering about technical support for all the new broadband subscribers are going to have, and who is going to do that? Well, certainly internet service providers can create their own call center if they're not already doing that. A municipality can start taking their own broadband support calls, or an EMC can start taking their own broadband support calls, or maybe an existing provider can start taking a lot more support calls. But if they don't want to do that, if somebody doesn't want to build a call center, check us out. We can help you with that. So you see our phone number there and our email address and our website. So check us out and reach out to us if you need help with that. Thanks a lot, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.